The air hung heavy with the scent of incense and the whispers of ancient spirits within the sacred grove of Obatala. Sunlight filtered through the towering trees, casting dappled shadows upon Shango, the fiery prince of Oyo, as he knelt before his father, the king of white cloth. A palpable tension filled the air, a mixture of reverence and ambition that crackled like the flames Shango was known to command. Obatala, his face a mask of wisdom etched with lines of worry, held aloft a small, unassuming gourd. "Shango, my son," his voice echoed through the grove. "Within this humble vessel lies a gift beyond measure, a charm, a medicine capable of granting you dominion over all who oppose you." Shango's eyes, already ablaze with ambition, intensified. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he accepted the gourd. This was it, the key to his destiny, the power to shape his own fate. "But heed my warning, my son," Obatala's voice lowered, a note of caution entering his tone. "This power is not to be taken lightly. It is a force of nature, a double-edged sword. Use it wisely or it will consume you." Shango nodded, his mind already racing with the visions of glory. He barely registered his father's words, lost in the intoxicating allure of absolute power. The gourd felt warm in his hand, thrumming with an uneasy energy that promised to reshape the world in his image. In the solitude of his chambers, Shango examined the gourd with reverence. It was plain, unremarkable, yet it pulsed with a raw power that seemed to beckon him. With a deep breath, he uncorked the vessel and consumed most of its contents. A bitter taste, like lightning captured in a liquid form, flooded his mouth, followed by a surge of energy that coursed through his veins. As the medicine took hold, the world around him seemed to warp and shimmer. His senses sharpened, his strength amplified, his very being transformed. But as the initial rush subsided, a seed of doubt took root. What if this power was not absolute? What if there were others who could challenge him? With a cunning gleam in his eyes, Shango summoned Oya, his favorite wife, the goddess of winds and storms. She entered the chamber, her movements as fluid and unpredictable as the elements she commanded. Shango held out the gourd to her, a sly smile playing on his lips. "Oya, my beloved," he purred, his voice laced with a hint of manipulation. "Keep this safe for me. It is a potent medicine, one that will ensure our reign is unchallenged." Oya accepted the gourd, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "Of course, my king," she replied, her voice a soft melody that belied the storm brewing within her. "Your will is my command." But even as she uttered those words, a flicker of defiance danced in her eyes. She had always been a woman of power, a tempestuous spirit who chafed against the constraints of obedience. As Shango turned his back, a knowing smirk curled Oya's lips. "A gift for a king," she murmured, a mischief glint in her eyes. "But who says a queen cannot share in his bounty?" With a swift, almost imperceptible movement, Oya tipped the gold back and drained the remaining contents. A jolt of raw power surged through her, electrifying her senses. She felt a thrill of liberation, a surge of newfound strength. For a fleeting moment, she locked eyes with Shango's retreating figure, a silent challenge passing between them. The balance of power had shifted, and a new era was about to dawn. 2. The King's Transformation. The following morning, the air in the royal court of Oyo was thick with anticipation. Chiefs and elders, resplendent in their ceremonial robes, gathered in the grand hall, their whispers buzzing like a swarm of agitated bees. Their king, Shango, had always been a fiery, passionate leader, but something had shifted. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, a tension that made even the bravest warriors uneasy. As Shango strode into the court, silence descended like a shroud. Gone was the jovial, boisterous king they knew. In his place stood a figure cloaked in an aura of raw power, his eyes blazing with an intensity that seemed to pierce their very souls. "People of Oyo," he boomed, his voice echoing like thunder through the chamber, "a new dawn has broken, a dawn of unyielding might and boundless prosperity." His declaration hung in the air, a double-edged promise. Some saw in it a vision of greatness, a future where Oyo reigned supreme. Others, however, felt a chill of foreboding, a sense that this newfound power was a dangerous, uncontrollable force. Shango raised his arms, his regal robes billowing around like the storm clouds. "Witness," he roared, and a torrent of flames erupted from his mouth, bathing the hall in an inferno of blinding light and searing heat. Pandemonium erupted. Screams of terror filled the air as the courtiers fled in a mad scramble, their richly embroidered garments catching fire. The elders, their faces etched with fear, stumbled over each other in their haste to escape the fiery wrath of their transformed king. Meanwhile, in the heart of the palace, a different kind of transformation was taking place. Oya, her eyes gleaming with an unholy light, stood before Oshun and Oba, her co-wives, but the meek submissive wife they knew was gone. In her place stood a woman ablaze with newfound power, a storm goddess awakened. "Sisters," she purred, her voice laced with a thrilling excitement, "did you witness Shango's display? Our husband is a god amongst men." Oshun, the gentle goddess of love and beauty, recoiled, her eyes wide with alarm. "Oya, what have you done?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Oya's laughter, sharp and wild, echoed through the chamber. "What any woman of ambition will do, my dear sister," she retorted, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I have simply claimed my rightful share of the divine." Oba, the goddess of heat and home, shook her head, her face etched with worry. "This is a dangerous path you tread, Oya. Shango will not take this lightly." A defiant smile curled Oya's lips. "Let him try to stop me," she challenged, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. With a graceful gesture, she summoned a whirlwind that swept through the chamber, extinguishing the lamps and sending tapestries flapping like panicked birds. Rain began to fall from the ceiling, lightning danced around her outstretched hands, and the very foundations of the palace seemed to tremble. The chaos escalated, spreading like wildfire through the once serene palace. Shango and Oya, now twin forces of nature, unleashed their raw power, their actions intertwining in a symphony of destruction. Amid the mayhem, Shango's initial exhilaration began to wane. The flames that danced around him felt less like a source of power and more like a consuming inferno. The weight of his newfound godhood pressed upon him, a burden he was not sure he could bear. With a sudden chilling clarity, he turned to his wives, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. "My queens," he croaked, his voice hoarse from the heat and dawning realization, "this is not our place. Our power has grown too great for this mortal realm. We must seek a new dominion, a place where we can harness this power without endangering the world." Oya stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "Then lead us, my king." she declared, her voice echoing with the power of the storm. Let us forge a new destiny, a realm where our power can reign unchallenged. A spark of understanding passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the wild path they had embarked on. With a final roar, Shango summoned a bolt of lightning, shattering the marble floor beneath them. As the earth groaned and split open, revealing a chasm that plunged into the depths of the underworld, Shango extended his hand to his wives. Together they stepped into the abyss, leaving behind the burning palace and the terrified remnants of their former lives. The earth sealed shut behind them, a final ominous punctuation mark on a chapter of their lives they had ended in chaos and transformation. Their journey into the unknown had begun, a perilous descent into a realm where power reigned supreme, and the consequences of their choices would reverberate through eternity. 3. The Rift in the Underworld. The Underworld was a realm of contrasts, a place where the oppressive hit of Shango's fury clashed with the chilling depths of Oya's resolve. In the cavern they had claimed as their own, an uneasy tension hung heavy in the air, a silent storm brewing between two deities. Shango, his once proud figure now hunched with barely suppressed rage, stalked the cavern's edge, his footsteps echoing ominously in the silence. His eyes, glowing with an unnatural intensity, were fixed on Oya, who sat apart from her co-wives, a statue of quiet defiance. Her face, unusually alight with playful mischief, was now set in a mask of cold determination. Oya, Shango's voice rasped, each syllable dripping with accusation. You have dared to betray me. Oya tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. Betray you, or merely claim what is rightfully mine? Her words struck Shango like a lightning bolt, igniting a fresh wave of fury. Mine, he thundered, his voice echoing through the cavern. Everything here is mine. The power, the dominion, even you. Oya rose to her feet, her movements as graceful and deadly as a striking serpent. You speak of power as if it were a trinket to be owned, she said, her voice dripping with scorn. Power is not a possession, Shango. It is a force, a current that flows through us all, and I will not be damned. Shango lunged towards her, his hands crackling with electricity, but Oya was already gone, a whirlwind of air and defiance, leaving only a lingering scent of ozone in its wake. Oshun and Oba, witnesses to this unfolding drama, exchanged a worried glance. Oba, the ever-practical one, spoke first. Shango, your rage will consume you. Let her go. Shango whirled on her, his eyes blazing. Silence, he roared. She's mine, and I will not be denied. With a cry of frustration, he stormed out of the cavern, leaving behind a stunned silence. His pursuit of Oya was relentless, his anger fueling a destructive path through the labyrinthine depths of the underworld. Oya, meanwhile, had fled to the ocean's embrace, seeking sanctuary in the realm of her brother Olokun, the sea god, a figure of immense power and wisdom. Listened intently as his sister poured out her heart, her voice filled with a mixture of hurt and defiance. He has become a tyrant, Oya sobbed, her tears mingled with the salty sea spray. He sees me as nothing more than an extension of his own will. Olokun nodded, his eyes filled with a profound sadness. Shango has always been driven by ambition, he said, his voice deep and resonant like the ocean's currents. But this new power has awakened a darkness within him, a hunger that cannot be sated. Oya clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. I will not let him consume me, she declared. I will fight for my freedom, even if it means challenging the very forces that created us. Olokun reached out, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Then prepare yourself, sister," he said, "for the storm is brewing and the tides of fate are turning. The clash between you and Shango is inevitable. But remember, even in the darkest depths, there is always a glimmer of hope." Oya looked into her brother's eyes, drawing strength from his unwavering support. "I will not falter," she vowed, "and when Shango comes for me, he will find that I am no longer a meek wife he once knew. I am Oya, queen of the storms, and I will not be silenced." As Oya steeled herself from the impending confrontation, Shango's rage continued to burn, a beacon of destruction illuminating his path. The stage was set for a cataclysmic clash, a battle between two deities whose love had turned to ashes, leaving only the embers of ambition and the cold steel of defiance. 4. The Celestial Chase. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ethereal landscape, Oya's cloud chariot raced towards the shimmering expanse of the ocean. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat echoing the thunder of Shango's pursuit. The air crackled with his fury, his presence a looming shadow that stretched across the sky. Below the ocean mirrored the fading sunlight, a vast expanse of shimmering blue that promised sanctuary. Olokun's palace rose from the depths, a majestic structure of coral and pearl, a beam of hope in a gathering darkness. But even as Oya's spirits lifted, a chilling dread tightened its grip around her heart. Could she truly outrun the wrath of a god? Shango, his form wreathed in flames, burst through the clouds like a vengeful comet, his eyes burning with an unholy light, locked onto Oya, his lips twisting into a snarl of pure rage. "You dare defy me, woman?" His voice boomed across the heavens, each word a thunderclap that shook the very foundations of the world. "You will learn that there is no escape from Shango's wrath." Oya, her breath coming in raged gasps, urged her cloud steed onward. "Never again, Shango," she retorted, her voice laced with a newfound steel. "I will not be your plaything, your possession. I am Oya, and I will chart my own destiny." The chase intensified, a whirlwind ballad of defiance and fury. Oya, her movements guided by the currents of the wind, twisted and turned, evading Shango's grasp by a hair's breadth. Each near miss fueled his rage, his every roar a testament to his wounded pride. Yet Oya's defiance only seemed to strengthen her resolve. With each twist and turn, she felt a surge of power, a growing sense of autonomy that fueled her desperate flight. The sun, now a fiery orb sinking into the ocean's embrace, cast long, dancing shadows across the water. Oya, her eyes searching the horizon, spotted a shimmering lagoon, a haven of tranquility amidst the chaos. It was the domain of Olosa, her sister, a goddess of serene waters and gentle breezes. "Hold on, sister," Oya whispered, her voice barely audible over the roaring wind. "I am coming." With renewed determination, she steered her cloud towards the lagoon, her heart filled with a desperate hope. But Shango, sensing her change of course, unleashed a torrent of lightning that ripped through the sky, illuminating his grim pursuit. The distance between them narrowed, the air growing thick with tension. Oya, her breath hitching in her throat, prepared for the inevitable confrontation. But just as Shango was about to seize her, a figure emerged from the lagoon, her form shimmering like moonlit water. "Shango." Olosa's voice was calm, yet filled with undeniable authority. "Enough." Shango skidded to a halt, his fiery aura flaring in frustration. "This is a matter between husband and wife, Olosa," he snarled. "Step aside." But Olosa stood her ground, her gaze unwavering. "Not this time, Shango." she replied, her voice ringing with an unexpected strength. Oya has sought my protection, and I will not abandon her to your fury. The two deities locked eyes, their powers swirling around them like opposing storms. The air crackled with unspoken threats, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Oya, caught between the two titans, held her breath, her fate hanging in the balance. Shango, his face contorted with rage, took a step forward, but her hand raised in warning did not flinch. A silent challenge hung in the air, a question of will and power that threatened to shatter the fragile peace of the twilight hour. 5. The Fury Unleashed. A guttural roar like a wounded beast ripped through the air, sending tremors through the already ravaged landscape. Shango, a fiery silhouette against the darkened sky, moved with an unnatural swiftness, a force of pure destruction. The once lush forests were now a blackened wasteland, their skeletal remains a grim testament to his fury. Rivers boiled, the earth crackled, and the very air seemed to sizzle with his rage. Hidden within the shimmering embrace of Olos's lagoon, Oya watched with a heavy heart. The pain in her eyes mirrored the devastation unfolding before her. She had not wished for this unbridled display of power, but she would not be broken by it. She would not be consumed by the storm she had helped unleash. Olosa, her ethereal form radiating a serene light, sensed her sister's inner turmoil. Oya, she whispered, her voice barely a ripple against the cacophony of Shango's rage. Despair not. There is still strength within you, a resilience that even the fiercest storm cannot extinguish. Oya nodded, a flicker of defiance rekindling in her eyes. She would not be defined by Shango's wrath. She would forge her own path, a path guided by her own strength and wisdom. With a determined heart, she bid farewell to her sister and ventured into the ravaged world. Her journey led her through a land scarred by Shango's fury, a landscape of twisted trees and scorched earth. Yet, amidst the desolation, she found an unexpected source of hope. Huisi, a man known for his gentle spirit and unwavering kindness, stood amidst the wreckage, his eyes filled with a profound sorrow. He has become a monster, Huisi lamented, his voice heavy with grief. But even in the darkest of times, there is always a flicker of light. Oya approached him, drawn by the warmth in his voice, the empathy in his eyes. Indeed, she murmured, a tentative smile gracing her lips. But how can one find light in such darkness? Huisi knelt, gently picking up a charred leaf from the ground. Look closely, he said, holding it up to the faded sunlight. Even in death there is beauty. Even in destruction there is a promise of renewal. His words resonated within Oya. A spark of hope ignited in her heart. She had been so focused on outrunning Shango's rage that she had forgotten her own strength, her own capacity for resilience. A newfound determination filled her being, a resolve to defy the darkness and embrace the light within her. She looked at Huisi, a silent understanding passing between them. They were two souls, bound by a shared experience, a mutual yearning for peace and healing. Huisi, emboldened by Oya's presence, felt a surge of power within him, a power not of destruction, but of protection. He reached out, his hand glowing with a soft ethereal light. Come, he whispered, his voice filled with an unwavering resolve. Let us find a safe haven, a place where the storm cannot touch you. Oya took his hand, her heart filled with a mixture of gratitude and newfound hope. As their fingers intertwined, a surge of energy flowed between them, a fusion of their spirits that transcended the boundaries of mortal and divine. Together they journeyed through the ravaged landscape, guided by the faintest glimmer of starlight. They sought refuge in hidden grottos and abandoned temples, their bond growing stronger with each step. Huisi, his gentle nature infused with Oya's indomitable spirit, became a beacon of hope, a shield against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. As they ventured further, they came upon a secluded village, nestled amidst the ruins of a once great city. Its inhabitants, survivors of Shango's wrath, welcomed them with open arms, their faces urged with weariness and despair. Oya, moved by their plight, felt a surge of compassion. She knew that she could not undo the damage that had been done, but she could offer solace, a beacon of hope in a world ravaged by despair. With Huisi by her side, she began to use her powers to heal the land, to soothe the wounds inflicted by Shango's rage. The parched earth drank in her life-giving rain, withered plants bloomed with renewed vigor, and the villagers, their spirits lifted by her presence, began to rebuild their shattered lives. But even as hope blossomed in this small corner of the world, a dark shadow loomed on the horizon. Shango, his fury unabated, had tracked Oya to this haven of peace. The air crackled with the tension, the earth trembled in anticipation, and a chilling wind whispered of the impending storm. The final confrontation was at hand. 6. The Duel of the Deities. The earth trembled, its very bones shuddering beneath the weight of Shango's fury. He descended upon the tranquil village like a plague of locusts, his thunderous footsteps sending tremors through the once peaceful valley. The earth grew heavy with the scent of ozone, a prelude to the electrical storm that raged within him. His eyes, burning with an unholy light, scanned the landscape, searching for the one who had dared to defy him. Huisi, his heart pounding in his chest, emerged from the shadows, his unusually gentle demeanor replaced by a grim determination. He had tasted the power of the elements, a gift from Oya that had awakened a dormant strength within him. He would not cower before Shango's wrath. He would stand as a shield, protecting the woman who had sought his refuge. "Shango!" His voice boomed, echoing through the valley like a rallying cry. "Your reign of terror ends here." A cruel smirk twisted Shango's lips, his eyes raking over Huisi's figure with undisguised contempt. "You, a mere mortal, dare challenge the might of a god?" His laughter boomed like thunder, a mocking echo of Huisi's defiance. "You are nothing but a fleeting spark against the eternal flame of my power." But Huisi's resolve did not waver. He met Shango's gaze with an unwavering stare, his voice steady as he replied, "I may be mortal, but I am not without strength. Oya's spirit flows through me, and with it, the power to protect those I hold dear." Shango's rage ignited, his form shimmering with an incandescent fury. With a flick of his wrist, a bolt of lightning aced towards Huisi, its jagged path illuminating the darkened sky. But Huisi was ready. A whirlwind erupted around him, a swirling vortex of wind and water that deflected the lightning strike. The earth shook as the two titans clashed, their powers unleashed in a symphony of destruction. Shango, a fiery inferno, unleashed a torrent of lightning bolts, each strike leaving a smoking crater in the earth. Huisi, a whirlwind of elemental fury, retaliated with gusts of hurricane force winds that tore through the landscape, uprooting trees and sending debris flying. The sky itself became a battleground, a swirling vortex of fire and rain. Lightning danced with the wind, thunder roared in defiance of the storm. The very elements seemed to bend to their will, a testament to the raw power that coursed through their veins. Amidst the chaos, Oya watched with bated breath. Fear gnawed her heart, but a fierce pride swelled within her as well. Huisi, the gentle soul she had sought refuge with, had transformed into a warrior, a champion of her cause. His bravery, his unwavering resolve, filled her with a renewed sense of hope. The battle raged on, a relentless clash of wills and elemental forces. But as the hours wore on, a shift in the balance of power became evident. Shango, his rage-fueled attacks growing erratic, found himself increasingly outmaneuvered by Huisi's fluid movements and unpredictable strikes. Huisi, empowered by Oya's spirit and the elements themselves, pressed his advantage. He summoned a torrent of rain that doused Shango's flames, then unleashed a whirlwind that sent the thunder gods stumbling backward. The tide seemed to be turning, a glimmer of victory flickering in the distance. But the gods, it seemed, still needed to finish their cruel game. As Shango and Huisi grappled in a final desperate embrace, the earth beneath them groaned and split open, a gaping chasm, its depths shrouded in darkness, threatened to swallow them whole. With a final desperate surge of power, both deities unleashed a devastating attack, a blinding flash of light, a deafening roar, and then silence. When the dust settled, the village lay in ruins, a testament to the destructive power of their conflict. But of Shango and Uwisi, there was no sign. The chasm had closed, leaving only a scar on the earth, a silent reminder of the battle that had raged. Oya, her heart heavy with sorrow and a lingering sense of dread, stood amidst the wreckage, her eyes fixed on the place where the earth had swallowed her champion and her tormentor. She had escaped Shango's wrath, but at what cost? Her journey was far from over. She had lost a friend, a protector, a beacon of hope in a world ravaged by darkness, but she would not give in to despair. She would honor Huwisi's memory by continuing the fight, by seeking a world where peace and balance could be restored. Oya's triumph. In the aftermath of the battle, Oya emerged from the rubble, her eyes hollowed by grief and exhaustion. The once vibrant village now lay in ruins, a haunting reminder of the devastation wrought by unchecked fury. Yet, within her battered spirit, a flicker of hope remained. She would not allow Shango's destructive path to be the final chapter of her story. She set her sights on Lokoro, a land known for its tranquil waters and gentle winds, a sanctuary far removed from the storm of her past. With each step, a newfound resolve solidified within her, a determination to honor Huwisi's sacrifice and forge a new path. Upon reaching Lokoro, she was greeted not with fear or hostility, but with reverence and awe. The people, drawn to her strength and resilience, saw in her a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in a world shrouded in darkness. They offered her shelter, nourishment, and most importantly, their unwavering devotion. Oya, humbled by their kindness, found solace in their embrace. She shared her story, her voice trembling with sorrow as she recounted the events that had led her to their shores. The villagers listened intently, their faces etched with a mixture of empathy and admiration. In the days that followed, Oya found herself drawn to the sacred groves that dotted the landscape. There, amongst the ancient trees and whispering winds, she reconnected with the essence of her being, the untamed spirit that had been buried beneath layers of obedience and fear. With each passing day, her strength returned, her resolve hardened. She no longer saw herself as a victim of Shango's wrath, but as a force of nature in her own right, a goddess worthy of reverence and respect. The people of Lokoro, witnessing her transformation, felt a surge of devotion. They saw in Oya a champion, a protector, a symbol of their own resilience in the face of adversity. They began to build a temple in her honor, a place where they could offer their prayers and seek her guidance. As the temple took shape, a sense of purpose filled Oya. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she also understood that she was not alone. She had found a home, a community, a place where she could finally embrace her true identity. One day, as she stood before the newly constructed temple, a radiant figure emerged from the depths of the earth. It was Huwisi, his form shimmering in an ethereal glow. "Oya," he said, his voice filled with warmth and affection. "You have found your sanctuary." Oya rushed towards him, her heart overwhelmed with joy and relief. "Who is he?" she exclaimed, embracing him tightly. "You are alive." Huwisi smiled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Death is but a fleeting illusion, my dear Oya," he said. "Our spirits are eternal, bound by a love that transcends the boundaries of life and death." Oya looked into his eyes, a profound sense of peace washed over her. She had lost so much, but she had also gained so much. She had found strength in adversity, purpose in pain, and love in the most unexpected of places. The people of Lokoro, witnessing this reunion, were filled with awe. They recognized the divine bond between Oya and Huwisi, and they vowed to honor them both. They expanded the temple, creating a sanctuary where both deities could be worshipped and revered. As the years passed, Oya's fame spread far and wide. She became known as the Queen of Storms, a powerful goddess who had triumphed over adversity and found her true calling. Her temple in Lokoro became a place of pilgrimage, a beacon of hope for those seeking strength and guidance. But even as Oya basked in adulation of her followers, a lingering question remained. What became of Shango? Had he perished in the depths of the earth, or was he consumed by his rage, still plotting his revenge? Shango's descent. After the cataclysmic duel, the underworld became Shango's tomb, a desolate expanse reflecting his inner turmoil. The air, once vibrant with the hum of life, now hung heavy with an oppressive silence, broken only by the echo of his anguished cries. The once proud king found himself a prisoner of his fury, his power warped and twisted into a prison of shadows and despair. The vibrant flames that once danced around him, a testament to his might, now flickered weakly, mirroring the dwindling embers of his spirit. The heart that once radiated from him, a beacon of his divine essence, had transformed into a stifling, suffocating warmth. The underworld, a place of decay and forgotten memories, mirrored his own descent into despair. His thoughts raced, a chaotic whirlwind of anger, regret, and longing. The image of Oya, her defiant eyes burning into his soul, haunted his very waking moment. Her name, once a sweet melody on his lips, now tasted like poison, a bitter reminder of his failure. He rallied against the unyielding walls of his prison, his fists pounding against the cold, unforgiving rock. Each blow echoed through the empty expanse, a futile testament to his impotence. He summoned lightning, its jagged bolts illuminating the cavern in a brief fleeting brilliance, only to be swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Sensing his weakening resolve, the underworld began to whisper its seductive promises. The shadows danced and writhed, their serpentine forms beckoning him towards oblivion. The whispers of forgotten spirits, their voices filled with a siren's allure, promising him release from his torment. Shango's spirit, worn thin by the relentless onslaught of despair, found himself drawn to the alluring whispers. His fiery aura flickered and waned, his once proud form shrinking in the face of overwhelming darkness. The weight of his failure pressed upon him, crushing his spirit, extinguishing the last embers of his defiance. He stumbled through the labyrinthine corridors of the underworld, his steps faltering, his breaths ragged gasps. The echoes of his past glories mocked him, their whispers taunting him with the bitter taste of defeat. He had fallen, a god cast down from his celestial throne, a king reduced to a wandering spectre. Yet, even as the darkness threatened to engulf him, a spark of hope remained. Deep within the recesses of his soul, a flicker of defiance refused to be extinguished. It was a whisper, a faint echo of the mighty king he once was, a reminder of the power that still slumbered within him. He clung to this hope, a fragile lifeline in a sea of despair. He would not surrender to the whispers of oblivion. He would endure, he would persevere, he would find a way to rise from the ashes of his defeat. For he was Shango, and his story was far from over. Thanks for joining me. This is the House of Horrors, signing out.